Hi everybody and welcome to the video and live streaming show. My name's John Lacey and today on the show we're going to be talking all about capturing and sharing your screen. How you can do it from a technical perspective. We're going to look at how we can work with OBS Studio. We're going to look at recording and potentially editing a screen capture video in TechSmith's Camtasia. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about capturing static images and how you might annotate those with a program called Greenshot. But I also want to talk about really what do you need to keep in mind when you are screen sharing, because there can be some perils there, but we are going out live to all the various places. So say hello if you are watching live. Hello to Ender Trader, who's actually on the beach in Malaysia. So that's lovely. I hope the weather's good for you over there. And Saeed is saying you're living the dream, Ender, which is, sounds like you certainly are. And hello to Saeed as well, who's obviously joining us over in Germany at ridiculously early in the morning. There was a comment earlier from him. Hello. I should say too, for our regulars, Sam isn't here today, obviously. He's in the process of moving into a new apartment, which is wonderful, but I think he's going to be without internet for a little while. So he'll be back at some point in the near future, and we'd love to hang out with him when he can, but obviously there's a whole lot going on in that space. Hello to Greg, who's watching over in New Jersey, and Raindrops and Ripples, who I guess is watching on Sam's Twitch. Thank you for joining me. So today, I guess we probably need to start by talking about, the benefits and the potential hazards of actually sharing your screen. And this can work in all kinds of different capacities. So it could be that you're just sharing your screen with a coworker. It could be that you're doing it in a larger meeting with a whole bunch of people. You could be doing a live stream or a podcast recording. There are all kinds of opportunities to do this. And again, I don't want to scare anybody, but I think in a lot of ways, when people start creating content, they're worried about looking dumb and tripping over their words. And don't get me wrong, there's always the opportunity to do that. And a bit of practice will help you on that front. But I think there's even a bigger danger in potentially sharing something you didn't intend to share. So keep in mind that if you do have any kind of sensitive information, personal information, passwords, anything that's potentially on your screen that you don't want people to see, it's a really good idea to be quite mindful of that and make sure that you're not accidentally sharing stuff, because there are all kinds of privacy and security issues that could potentially be at play. So keep that in mind. And, it could be something as trivial as being in a work meeting and accidentally sharing a screen that has a private chat on it. You don't want to do that. It's always a little bit dangerous. And hello to Walter from the Huddle, who's joining us as well. And Mohammed, who I think is watching over on LinkedIn. Great to be with you. Okay. I guess my recommendations, generally speaking, if you do intend to share your screen, it's often a really good idea to have at least two screens. And the way I think about this personally is I have one screen that is for sharing and one screen that is just for my reference. And you need to know which is which and make sure that you're not accidentally sharing the wrong one. So that said, I realize not everybody is in the position to have multiple screens. I've kind of got 4 screens on my setup at the moment between the teleprompter and the additional extra display. So it's a bit of a luxury for me, but if you can't do that, if you are going to be going live or sharing in a meeting, first of all, just close anything you don't need for that, because not only will that help streamline what you're trying to do, but it'll also, it'll prevent you from accidentally sharing things you don't want to share, but it'll make your computer faster. It'll probably help your internet speed as well. So anything that you don't need for that presentation, for that live stream, for that podcast recording, just close it down. And Windows is a funny beast, because I find that there are lots of things running in the background that I don't actually need, and it's kind of annoying, but I just wanted to flag that as a potential issue. So we are going to be talking later on about working with some image capture. So we're going to talk about sharing your screen in a video sense, capturing the action, but also as a static image. And I kind of feel like if there's ever a chance that you could inadvertently share personal, private, or confidential information, don't do it live, because it's just too risky. What I'd much rather you do is actually take some screenshots, take out anything that could be a problem, and then just save that image somewhere, and then share that image and just talk your way through it. Say it is recommending that you disable notifications too. It's funny, I don't even have notifications on my computer. Like that's not how I like to work because I find I just get distracted by things. But yes, if you do have those, because there's nothing worse, and I hear this on podcasts all the time, is they'll be having a conversation and you'll just hear ding, ding, ding in the background as you're getting these notifications. And again, that could be a visual indication as well if you're sharing your screen. So the challenge for me in some ways this week, and I don't know if we'll go for the entire hour because I find when I'm by myself, I talk really quickly and I get through the content really quickly, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I am trying to pace myself a little bit. So just to recap, what I will be showing you though is, first of all, we're going to delve into a bit of OBS Studio because I know some of you love that. And even if you don't love that, it's literally a free and open source tool. So, you know, depending on what you want to do, it can be certainly inexpensive. You don't have to pay for any special technology. That said, if you did want to pay for some technology, I'm going to show you TechSmith's Camtasia application, which is a video editing software that also captures your screen in some really cool ways. And I'm going to show you their new Rev feature, which is really cool as well. It sort of helps you speed up your production processes potentially, without relying too heavily on AI, although there is at least one AI feature in there as well. And I'm also going to show you how you can sort of capture and annotate static images with a program called Greenshot. And I just want to say up front, it almost doesn't matter what you use. So if you've got existing tools that you love, don't feel like you have to make a change. If they work for you, that's great. And every kind of operating system has its own screen capture tools built into it. So it could be that you're just using those as well. Okay, I've got a question here from Walter. John, could you recommend one or two apps or software that could help me share content from my iPhone to my PC during a live stream? That's a really interesting question. Again, I'm not really a Mac or an Apple person, so I don't use an iPhone as such, but I believe there are tools out there. And I guess the thing that Sam and I spoke about briefly last week was the ability to, and again, it depends on what you're using, but certainly if you're using OBS Studio, you can use the VDO Ninja. So that's literally the letters VDO. And that way you can share potentially your camera, your microphone, and also your screen. But again, I might need to revisit that, Walter. I'm not really across the whole Apple ecosystem. But if you do have recommendations, and I know other people in the comments probably do use these tools on an Apple, let me know in the chat because I'd love to make some connections there for Walter. That would be awesome. Okay, so again, like I was saying, it doesn't really matter what you use. It's just how you use them. And again, I'm not trying to twist your arm. And two of the three tools I'm going to show you about today are literally free. So, you know, I'm not getting any kind of affiliate kickback. So don't worry about that. They're just my opinions. You can use them or you can not use them. That's entirely up to you. But what we're going to do, I'm going to play a little ad break here. And we're going to come back and we're going to look at OBS Studio and how we can share in terms of that.
We are constantly training our cats every interaction that we have with them. Mm-hmm. So when Johan would get on my counter before, you know, this is 10 years ago before I was the cat expert that I am now. Johan would jump on the counter. What was the first thing I did? I'd say his name, Johan. Well, he loves that. That's a reward for him. He said, you just said my name. I would go over to him and I'd talk to him and be like, you can't be on the counter. Johan loves when I talk to him. Ding, that's another reward for Johan. I'd pick him up and put him on the ground, but I didn't want him to think I was mad at him. So when I'd pick him up very nicely and kiss him on the head and say, I love you, but you can't be here. I'd put him on the ground. I had just done 3 things that rewarded him for being on the counter. So I was encouraging him to continue doing that.
And that's a segment from Sam's podcast, Just Kidding Around, which you can learn more about over at cuteavalanche.com. For those that don't know, Sam and his wife, Amanda, they traditionally have this 24/7 a kitten camera that you can go and watch the kittens on, but they have unfortunately experienced a house fire recently. So I believe there is still sort of archive cat footage in all the various places, so you can check that out and support them as well. But it's a little bit different than it had been. So again, I love all these questions, and I might need to come back and revisit some of them later on. But any recommendations or for an app or software for using your Android phone as a webcam? I guess the popular one that people recommend is DroidCam. I must admit I haven't really used it, so I can't speak to how good it is. The thing about using an Android phone or an iPhone, the thing about using a phone or a wireless device is that you're generally relying on either mobile data or Wi-Fi, and those aren't usually the greatest connections, so that always makes me a little bit nervous. Although I did have a comment from someone last week over on LinkedIn that said if you have one of the Google Pixel devices, you can literally just connect it up to your USB on your computer and use that as a webcam in that way. And that, if that is correct, that would be awesome. And again, I don't have access to one of those, so I haven't had a chance to play with that just yet. But I kind of wish most phones had that capability, because I don't want to go wireless if I can help it. That always makes me a little bit nervous. And there have been times where I've tried to do things with my phone and an external microphone, and it's really easy to run into sort of lag issues and spotty Wi-Fi. So I tend to avoid that. But again, DroidCam is probably the one I would recommend you check out. But I might revisit that question a little bit later on. Thank you for that one, Ender. So I guess in terms of actually capturing and sharing your screen, this is, we're going to do the OBS thing. I know the OBS isn't for everybody, so if it's not, just sit tight and we'll get to the next thing shortly. But let's head over to the other screen share. So if you don't know, OBS Studio is free and open source software. It's available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. It is free and open source. It's very powerful. There is a little bit of a learning curve. Lots of people that produce paid tools will tell you it's scary. It's not that scary. But it does have a little bit of a learning curve. And if you want to head over to the Learn Live Streaming channel on YouTube, I've got a whole bunch of tutorials and I'm always looking to make more. So if you've got questions about that specifically, let me know. But I want to talk about how we can actually share our screen in OBS. So I've got a blank scene collection here that I've created earlier. Again, you've got your scenes, your sources down the bottom, and the sources is where most of the magic happens. So if you wanted to, you could come down here and go add source. And we've got a couple of different options in terms of actually sharing your screen. So we've got the ability to capture a window, and this is just a single application. The only thing I would say about this is that, depending on how the software is built, not all the extra dialog boxes will necessarily come along with this. But again, let's try this one out. So we've got window capture. I'm going to select that one. Give it a meaningful name. I will say Chrome browser. I'm making a lot of this up as I go along. But again, if you had a more definite use case, you would name this more meaningfully. It's going to default to what's actually happening over in StreamYard, but let's pick a different application. So I'm going to actually pick this one here, which is also just a Chrome browser, but it's got my YouTube channel in it. So we have different options here. We've got automatic. To be honest, I've only ever used automatic from the capture method. I don't think it really makes much of a difference. Windows match priority. So this is where you actually say, when you specify this window, how can OBS find this? Because what you'll usually find is if you set this up, you do your live stream, you come back to this scene collection later on, you've reopened it, it might be called something slightly different. So it's going to attempt to match those, but 9 times out of 10, I genuinely think it's easier just to come down here, go to the properties. You can right click and go properties or double click, and then just reselect that list from the drop down. You can say whether you want to capture the cursor or not. So if I turn that off, you won't see the cursor at all. If I turn that on, if I go over to this and move this around, you should hopefully see that cursor behind me. Okay. I must admit, I don't know. In fact, let me move this. And the other thing too, I'm working with 4 different screens. So I've actually moved that to a vertical screen and I've resized it. So you can see that the size has actually changed in the background. But now if I go capture cursor and I move this around here, you should see that behind me. In theory, you should be able to see that. I'm not actually seeing it. But because I'm kind of doing you know, 2 versions of OBS running at once, it might be a bit of a conflict there. So capture the cursor and you can go from there. So again, because I'm actually using I'm using this on a vertical screen, it's not necessarily a good match for this. I can't really get this to crop to the entire screen, but I can always hold down the Alt key and drag it in. So maybe I want to show you the website, but I don't want to show you the title bar or my bookmarks. I can certainly resize this. Again, I guess the general advice for today is you can make anything bigger, but at some point it will probably pixelate depending on the quality of the capture. So just keep that in mind. But I can certainly move that wherever I want and I can go from there. So that's the window capture. And you know, if I go anywhere else or if I bring something open, you can sort of see how I can demonstrate that. And sometimes that's all you need if you want to share something. If you want to actually just show somebody how something works, you can grab that there as well. Probably you'd also want to bring in your audio and maybe your camera as well. But let's just, I'm just going to hide this one for the moment. Let's talk about the other option that we have. And that essentially, and I'll bring this back over onto this side and we'll go back to OBS. So in addition to the window, you also have the display capture. And this will capture anything that's kind of on the screen in that you see at any time. And in some ways, this is the thing that I generally prefer. And that's why I have one screen that's dedicated to sharing and one that's not. So again, I could say sharing monitor or screen or whatever. You can call this whatever you like as long as it's meaningful to you. That's the whole thing. And again, because it's defaulted to this, we do have this inception type of affair here. So what you want to do is come down and select your monitor. Here actually, you can see the 4 monitors that I've got. So I've actually got this one that it's defaulted to. I've got this one over here, which has got another version of OBS running in vertical. I've got the Elgato teleprompter, and I've got my field monitor, which is literally just a clock at the moment, so I can keep on track in terms of time. So we basically select whichever one of these we want. What I might do, I'm going to actually just move this window back over to the vertical screen again, just so I can show you how this works. So we will select the second one, which is the primary monitor. Again, capture the cursor, don't capture the cursor, it's up to you. And then you can go from there. So now if I bring other things over here, and let me just open something randomly on my computer. In fact, let's bring up Solitaire, the card game. You know, anything that I put over here can be potentially shared. So that's another great way of working. The only other thing I would say, and I don't want to go into Creative Studio right now, but thank you nonetheless, YouTube. So this is really just capturing the visual. The other thing that I kind of recommend, if you do also need to capture the audio, is that you explore this other option. So let me just go back here, and in the sources, we've got the ability to add a source. And there's this great thing called audio application audio capture, and it's currently technically in beta. But essentially what I can do there is I can add a new source, I can give it a name, and I can sort of say which one of these programs I want to capture the audio of. So you can do whatever you like there. Obviously, I'm not recommending you use this to pirate content online, and a lot of the tools out there have ways of preventing you from doing that anyway. But certainly one thing that I kind of do occasionally, and I don't subject most people to this, but sometimes on Twitter, I will go live and I've got a little MIDI keyboard beside me and I'll just share. I won't even be on camera, but I'll share the software and I will share the audio of the software, and I'll just improvise at the keyboard for a little while late at night for the hell of it. So those are a couple of different ways that you can certainly do that. And I'm curious, Saeed, if you're still lurking, are there any sort of screen sharing tips that you would recommend, especially in terms of the OBS stuff? Because I feel like I need a second mind to bounce off today. I haven't had nearly enough coffee. Hello to CG, who's joining us over on Twitch. Great to have your company. Just a reminder, Sam isn't here this week, but he should be back soon. I believe he's moving into a new apartment, which is wonderful, so the family can get back onto their feet. But I think it's going to take them a little bit of time to actually organize the internet situation over in that new place. But it's great that they've got a little bit more of a reliable place to live, because they were couch surfing for a while there. So this is the video and live streaming show. Today we're talking all about capturing your screen and sharing that screen. Okay. I totally misread that for a second. So the great thing about what Saeed is saying is that he likes to crop away what he doesn't need. So again, that's great, because I think sometimes, you know, I spoke earlier about the dangers of sharing something that maybe you don't want to share, but also if your screen is just super busy, people watching it will get distracted. So it's often a good way to sort of crop in and just show the parts that are really, really important. And I think, you know, for a lot of screen tutorial videos, you can sometimes even simplify the UI and just say, this is the place you go, this is the button you click on, and sort of zoom in and out as you like. And again, that's another thing that I know there are ways of doing it. Generally speaking, I will probably move that to an editing situation if I do really want to zoom in and out on different parts of my screen and make it a little bit more dynamic. But I believe there are ways of doing it in OBS as well, but just don't ask me what those are today, because I probably couldn't tell you. So those are a couple of options. And also, do you want people to see your cursor or not? That's a great question. So again, if I'm walking you through how to do something, it's probably quite useful. But to be honest, you kind of want to narrate that stuff anyway. And the thing that I encourage people to do is, it's really tempting to share your screen and say, click here, click here, click here. And if people can see that, if they're not distracted, if they're not busy, that's potentially okay. But, you know, in terms of accessibility, what I really want to do is say, click on the file menu and go to settings. And then from settings, go to hotkeys. And like, just be a little bit more explicit in terms of what you're describing, because I think, you know, obviously if people have low vision, if they're blind, they can't see what you're doing, but they probably still want to know what those steps are. So that's something to keep in mind as well. All right, so this is the video and live streaming show. I have a feeling it's probably going to be a short one, because I'm getting through my content really quickly today, but that's okay. If you've got questions, throw them in the chat. It sounds like DroidCam is going to be quite a useful thing for Ender, and I believe Saeed recommends that you can also work with USB with DroidCam as well. So that's a great way of actually bringing that in, because again, I've had my little whinge about wireless technologies, like, and I know NDI, for example, is traditionally wireless technology that industry professionals use, but anything wireless, I'm just scared of losing the signal. I'm just worried about that lack of reliability. Okay, and Ender also wrote, I use OBS for easy, reliable screen capture. Also great for live backups if you were interviewing, etc. That's a great point too. And the thing is, and you've kind of seen the two instances of OBS that I'm running today to kind of demonstrate OBS, but also to do my green screen magic and you know, my branding essentially with the virtual camera. And the thing is, when Sam and I are here, we usually both record local versions through OBS. So if something happens with our connection, if something happens with StreamYard, we do have something that we can go back to if necessary. So you know, I know it's not for everybody, OBS, but don't be scared of it. And if you've got questions, let me know in the chat. But we're going to come back and talk about how we can do some screen capture and editing in OBS Studio.
And then I looked at the first assessment, and the first assessment was record a 5-minute video. And it was a pretty simple introduction of yourself. There was nothing exciting. I didn't have to research. It was just a 5-minute warm up. And I freaked out. That course is still sitting in the cupboard beside me. I see that stack of papers and I almost rock in the corner. It cost me a lot of money to sign up, and I threw the whole course away.
And that's Michelle J. Raymond speaking to me on Build a Presentation Muscle, which is my podcast all about showcasing your expertise through content creation. And you can learn more about that one over at johnlacey.com. She's currently traveling all around the world, speaking in different places. She's been to America, and I think she's in Denmark at the moment. So she's going everywhere. And I love using her as an example because we're all, I think most of us, if not all of us, are potentially scared of being on camera at first, and it is something you just need to get over. So before I get into the next segment, Saeed has recommended a few extra things, which I think are awesome. So he also recommends zooming in when sharing something from Chrome, 3 dots to zoom, or control mouse wheel. Yes, that's the other thing. So, and let's talk about that before we move on to the next segment. If I've got my window here, potentially things behind me are going to be quite small. So, if you wanted to, Control Plus is a way of zooming. And again, hopefully the web page you're sharing here is responsive and things are moving around a little bit and you can decide what you want. So, you can come in here and really call out specific things and make it quite obvious. You can also, go to the full screen option. So that's a good way of getting rid of the title bar and the bookmarks and other things as well. So that can help you focus. So there are all kinds of options you can do there too. So there is that as well. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I kind of forget this is a thing because I don't generally need it because I've got at least 2 monitors at any time. But if you do only have one screen that you're working with and you are working with OBS, if you go to the File menu and go to Settings, it's actually in the General section. So the General tab in the General section, there's an option here that says Hide OBS windows from screen capture. So that way, if you're not demonstrating OBS, it'll just ignore any of those. And if you're working from a single monitor, single screen, that's a really good way of keeping OBS out of your screen capture. The only thing I would say, as somebody who does use screen capture to capture OBS, often with 2 instances, if I click that on either of them, it'll remove them in both for whatever reason. And I run my traditional OBS, which is installed to my computer, and also a portable version to demonstrate some stuff. But if you do only have that one screen, that's a great option. Garen Parkins actually introduced me to that one some years ago, so that's really nifty as well. So again, you just need to try these things out and give it a go. But I want to talk a little bit about TechSmith's Camtasia. So it's a video editing software that it's really geared towards screen capture. So as somebody who makes a lot of tutorial videos and demonstrates things on screen, it's been really, really useful for me. I did have a bit of a grumble about it last week because they've changed their offering to a yearly subscription model, if I can spit that out properly. And, I was a bit grumpy about change, but I do think that this is still great software. And I'm going to play you a bit of a video recording I made earlier this morning, just to show you how you can easily capture and also put these elements together really quickly with a relatively new feature called Camtasia Rev. So let's have a look at that one. Okay, so I want to talk to you about how we can actually record our screen with Camtasia. And Camtasia it's video editing software, but essentially we can capture our screen. And the great thing about Camtasia specifically is that it captures not just the screen itself, but also the metadata in terms of things like the ability to, the motion of our mouse cursor, for example. So I can come here and I can do a new recording. And there are a few different options here as well. So there's the old traditional Camtasia video recording. There's the new Camtasia Rev recording option, which I'll show you first. Let's do that one. So I'm just going to click here. And I'm just going to move this over to where you can actually see it. So here we've actually got our recording options. So we've got the ability to choose which screen we want to actually record, screen 1, screen 2, screen 3, whatever you happen to have. You've got different sizes you can record at as well. I'm going to go, this might be a bit meta, but I'm actually going to record screen 1 just for today's purposes. Over here, we've got the ability to add our video camera. So it's defaulting to the Elgato Facecam, which I'm not using it at the moment, so let's go to the cam link instead. And there you go, you should be able to see me there. And I'm going to have to do some green screen magic because that's just how I roll. And I probably should have repositioned the screen behind me, but that's fine. So we've got the ability to select our microphone as well. In this case, I'm using the Rodecaster Pro, but whatever makes sense for your options. And we can go with system audio as well. So if I want to capture that, I can do that as well. So, you know, the thing I did want to note about the screen though is I'm actually recording a vertical screen, which might be a little bit weird, but we'll check that out in a second. And the Camtasia Rev option. So again, I'm going to leave this on. If you wanted to, and I'll show you what this does in a second, but if you wanted to ignore this completely, you can just toggle that off and just record normally, and then you can edit that however you like in the video editing software itself. But I'll turn that on. And now we're recording, so I would address the camera as normal. I would say whatever I wanted to say. I would go over to my software and say, hey, let me talk you through some of these OBS settings. Maybe we want to go to our hotkeys. I could talk about how we can set up a hotkey, you know, refresh browser sources, start or stop streaming, whatever I wanted to do. I could click OK. And when I'm happy with my recording, I can come in over here and press stop. And we'll just wait for Camtasia to catch up. And you'll see here, because I use this Rev option, it's actually giving me a whole bunch of different options. So I can stick with the recording size, I can go wide, I can go vertical, I can go square. So you've got that there. We can adjust the layout. So do I want to be at the top of my screen recording? Do I want to be underneath? Do I want to be there? There are all kinds of options and layouts you can play with. The idea of the Rev specifically is just to speed up the process. So if you're not somebody who wants to go in and make a whole bunch of different edits, this can be a great way of working. We can go in and we can select the background options. So again, they've got all these different colored gradients and some patterns as well. I don't know, just for today's purposes, I might pick that one. We've got our effects as well, so we can have drop shadow, corner rounding, reflection, which apparently is already on. So that's actually, it's very subtle, but it's actually reflecting the screen capture in the back. If I turn that on and off, you can see that there. The background removal. So the background removal is there. And I guess we'll talk about that in a second as well, but we've got things like cursor highlight. So if I bring that one on, for example, and hit play. I realize you can't hear this audio, but I just want to show you that you can actually play through this and see what that looks like. So with the cursor highlight, I can turn that off. I can, you know, it's already adjusted the scale to give you a larger mouse. We can adjust the color. We can put a shadow on the cursor as well. Whatever you want to do. And the great thing about these filters and effects is that you can go and edit them in Camtasia. So once we've got filters. So these are predominantly for the video screen, like the screen capture portion of this. And again, I don't know that I would probably use any of those, but from here, we have a couple of options. If I'm happy with this video as is, I can literally go to export and I can share that wherever I want to share that. But in this case, I'm going to go edit in Camtasia. And it's going to bring all these different elements into Camtasia. And from here, I can make whatever edits I like. I can sort of adjust, you know, different things. So, you know, the background removal, this is actually the AI. I believe this is the AI version. Traditionally, what I would do is I would just go in and remove the chroma key, the green screen behind me, but certainly you can do that, and we can make whatever changes we want to do in here. And it could be that maybe at some point I want to take myself off camera. Often thing that I will do, and I have this overwhelming need to sneeze, but let's not do that right now. I can come in and I can split part of this track. Let's make sure I've got that selected. And although I could come in here and just delete this, the thing that I find much more useful is to just adjust the opacity. So That way, those clips are never out of sync. They're always together like that. So, you know, it could be that I go away. And I guess the other thing too, like you can definitely see that the background, the AI background removal is not perfect. And again, if you do select an option here and you go into edit, you can always turn this off or, you know, toggle it off temporarily or remove it entirely. I'm sort of surprised. I guess that's for the, and I guess that's the thing. Now that I've made those changes, I probably need to select all of these together, turn that off over here. And the thing that I much prefer to do, generally speaking, is remove a color. So that one here. I would go in and I would actually pick out some version of this green. And I just generally find that works a little bit better. So whatever you want to do here, you can certainly make those changes. And then when you're happy, you can export that as well. Although the other thing that I probably need to do is actually crop that because you can see all the background that isn't covered by the green screen. So I can do that. And I could, you know, I guess the other thing is I could even just move myself to be a little bit more central. Again, it depends on what's happening on the screen behind me, but I certainly have those options. And of course, you can go in and animate those things. You can add the captions. You can do whatever else you need to do. So that's another great way of working. And again, if we look, you know, maybe more at this, the screen capture portion of this, if you will. Again, I want to move that. I don't really want to select. I think if I right click in here somewhere. Okay, cool. So here, you know, it could be that we're actually at 90%, so we can see the background a little bit, but maybe that's too small. Maybe I do want to make it 100%, and I can do that from the properties. I can adjust the rotation, the position, the width, or the skew. Again, I don't think I would want to do the skew, but you know, there might be times where you want to do something creative there as well. The other thing too, which is quite useful, is if you go to the animations section of this, we have the ability to pan and zoom. So if there was, and again, I don't know if this is, so maybe this is what we want to do. I can zoom in, and again, we're getting larger potentially than the recording. So at some point that might pixelate, so just keep that in mind. But if I wanted to, I could do that. I could maybe bring down my recording. And just here, and the thing that you'll see too here is that there's actually this little animation over here. And if I wanted to drag that out, that would make that a little bit more subtle. So I can go hit play and it will zoom into the area. And I can make whatever changes I want. So if you wanted to, you could certainly turn this into a full-blown edit and do all the various things. So I just wanted to show you how that works because it's quite a nifty thing. And if you do a lot of screen capture, if you do a lot of tutorial videos, it's a great piece of software. I was a little bit grumpy last week because they've just changed from, you know, the ability to purchase it outright to a yearly subscription model. But I think it's a great piece of software and I'll certainly continue to use it. And that there was a bit of a walkthrough how you can use Camtasia to capture that screen. And again, those if you're not naturally a video editor, you know, those rev options can potentially speed it up quite a bit if you're happy to embrace their templates. If you are a bit of a control freak, which frankly I am, you probably do want to go in and edit a lot of those things manually. But if you're not, then you know you could speed up that process by just ignoring that completely. So it's a great piece of software. Again, I think I've done an entire show on it previously, so you can check that out in the archives over at the Learn Livestreaming channel on YouTube. But essentially, that is another way of doing it. And again, I'm sure there are other tools. I'm not necessarily saying that's the greatest one. I'm just saying that's the one I'm using today. So again, if you do have any recommendations in terms of sharing your screen, capturing your screen, especially on those Apple and iOS devices that I don't really know too much about, Sam probably would. He probably would have some great recommendations. So maybe we could even revisit that when he's back. But let me know in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. And do say hi wherever you happen to be watching this. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe and all of the various things. So we're going to come back and talk about some static image capturing and annotation options that we have available to us. So this is the video and live streaming show.
If you've been watching us for a while, or this is your first time and you're thinking, Sam, John, this is great stuff, but I'm wearing a lot of hats already and I don't need to add this to my list of things that I'm doing, but I really want to live stream, I've got you covered. I've been a freelance technical director and stream operator for 20 years, and I can help you either with one-on-one counseling, setups of shows, or even run your whole show for you. Get in touch with me, samproof@gmail.com, or find out more at samproof.tv.
And you can certainly reach out to Sam for those live production services. I'm sure he'd be very happy to assist you with those. And head over to samproof.tv if you want to learn more about Sam. And he will be back at some point, so that's something we're all kind of looking forward to. But this is the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey. Today we're talking all about capturing and sharing your screen. We sort of touched on some of the things you might want to keep in mind about not oversharing, not risking your privacy or security. We spoke about sort of bringing screen sharing into OBS Studio. I did a little bit of a demonstration about capturing your screen in Camtasia. And now I kind of want to turn my attention to a way of capturing a static image and potentially annotating that. And again, there are so many great tools out there, and it doesn't really matter too much what you use, although I'm very fond of one I'm going to show you right now. And I have to say, I'm going to show you a very, very old LinkedIn article that I wrote from 2022. And it's, I'm even just looking at the image and how badly I'm kind of lit here is making me cringe. But anyway, it is what it is. And as Saeed pointed out earlier, if we wanted to, just make sure I'm in the right window before I do this, I could potentially zoom in and show you this even more. So screen capture and annotation with Greenshot. And I will show this tool in action, but there is a reason I wanted to show you this. So Greenshot is actually a free and open source tool. And there is a bit of some conditions there as well. So it's free for Windows users. There is a small fee for Mac users because it had to be listed on the Apple Store. But essentially, you can come in and you can download this one and you can see what it actually does. So the thing that I love about this, and again, classic example of me accidentally sharing something I probably didn't need to, the great thing about this is it has a whole bunch of different options about what you capture. And also, the thing that I really love about this is actually that it gives you the ability to annotate in its own little graphics program as well. So in terms of the capture options, we've got the ability to capture a region. So I can hit print screen and grab a section. I can capture the last region. So again, if I captured something and then I realized there was a problem with it and I made a change, I could press Shift and print screen to grab that same section again. I can go Alt print screen in Windows to capture a window, or Control print screen to capture the full screen. And the great thing about this, we'll talk about the image editor in a second. I'm hoping I have the screenshot in here. I may not, actually. You might need to watch the entire video for this. But essentially, when you do actually use this program, it will you capture the area and it'll give you a whole bunch of options. And I don't think I can actually share that live, but let me just do it in the background and I'll talk you through what these look like. Although it's defaulted to my tiniest screen. So let me just try that again. Okay, so here we go. So when you do actually, in fact, I'm going to try and share this. I don't know if it'll work. There we go, it does work. So if I select a region, I've got these options to save directly with your preferred file output settings. So you can set up a particular folder that you want to send this to and a particular file format that you'd like to use. We can save as, so that'll give you the ability to choose where you save it and choose the options there. You can copy it to a clipboard, you can send it to a printer, you can send it to all the Microsoft applications. Microsoft Paint, I don't know if I'd recommend that, but it is an option. You've got Windows OCR, so if you want to do a bit of optical character recognition, or Windows Share. But my favorite is actually the Open in Image Editor. So again, let me just capture maybe a larger section of this, and I will go Open in Image Editor. It's moved to a different screen, so let me drag it over here where you can actually see it. So the great thing about this is it has its own image editor built in, and you can do all kinds of really fun things here. So we've got the ability to actually we've got different shapes that we can bring in. We've got squares and ellipses, so I could sort of come in here and say, hey, I really want to draw your attention to this one. I can adjust the line color or the thickness. I can adjust the fill. I can put a shadow on there. I don't really love the shadows, but they're there if you want to try them. You can do that as well, but you can also draw arrows. So again, if there's something that you particularly want to, you've got lines and arrows. If I grab the arrow option, I could really direct somebody's attention here. I can make the line thickness bigger if I wanted to make that more obvious. I can change the pixel size, the arrowheads. I can have them on both ends if I wanted to. Again, I'm not sure why I would in this instance, but it is a thing that could happen. And again, you've got those shadow options you can turn on and off. But I guess the other thing too, and again, I wish I had a better example ready to go to show you this, but if you do have a process that is, I'm just going to delete that for the moment, it has a number of steps, and you can actually annotate the images in different ways. So this is a counter. So if I wanted to draw your attention to different parts of an interface, for example, I could click in here and say, first go to the drop shadow option, then go to the torn edge, and then the grayscale, and then invert. And I could essentially call out different parts of this image, and maybe there's some accompanying text that actually shows you what to do or describes these in more detail. You can Okay, I don't know how long I've been on mute, but I was on mute. Thank you for that, Walter. Yes. Yeah, I must have accidentally bumped something. Sorry about that. So anyway, I was just explaining that you can have these counters and they can be really, really cool. You've also got the ability to highlight different things. So again, I can just drag a different region. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay, cool. Thank you, Saeed. We've got the ability to highlight different things. Again, if you're working with sensitive information, this is my favorite one. We can actually obfuscate, which is a great word, different parts. So I can click in here and I can actually adjust the pixel size. So I can make that larger or smaller, but we can essentially get rid of that stuff. We've got some different effects with borders and drop shadows and torn edges. So the torn edge is kind of fun. It'll give you this area and it'll actually make the background transparent, which is cool as well. So there are all kinds of things you can do. You can come in and crop the image. You can actually rotate it. You can resize it. You can do a lot of different things. And then once you're happy with that, you can go and save it. You can copy it to the clipboard. You've got all kinds of awesome things. So again, I'm going to close that one out for the moment, and we'll go back to this option here. And you know, you've got the highlight area, so that's one I kind of skipped over mentioning, but you can actually select an area and it'll be easier to read and everything else around it will be blurred out. So we do have those options. But I guess the other thing too, if I actually capture my cursor as part of this, so I'm going to come in here and I'll grab this whole section. And again, you won't be able to see it because it's on a different screen, but I'll go open in Image Editor. You've actually got the cursor here and it is selectable. I can potentially make that larger. Again, it might get a little bit pixelated when I do that, but you can have that there. But because it's captured separately, I can also make a call and say, hey, maybe I don't want them to see this. Maybe I can delete this. So that in itself is really awesome as well. So there's all kinds of things you can do with that. Again, there are all kinds of tools out there, and I don't really mind what you use as long as it works for you. So don't obsess over this too much. But again, I think there are a couple of options I kind of skipped over. So we have the ability to add text, which is pretty straightforward. But if you wanted to say, don't forget this, and my size is massive, so that's probably why you're not seeing it. Let me bring that back down to about 40. Maybe even less than that. All right. Okay, let me make that bigger then. And again, just double check your fill color and your line color, because at the moment I think that's coming up as white. So you can do that as well. That's really useful. And you can give it a background fill color if you wanted to do that as well. And again, just get into the habit of right clicking, because that gives you a whole bunch of options. So that's the obfuscate option. We looked at that one. The effects. So invert. If you want to change the color scheme easily from dark to from light to dark, that's certainly a fun thing to do potentially. And I can invert that again. I can make that grayscale. I can draw freehand. Like, there's all kinds of stuff. And again, I know this is probably not the most thrilling part of today's presentation, but I just wanted to call that out as a useful thing. And as you know, it can help with all kinds of stuff. So if you're just showing somebody via Microsoft Teams that you want to, you know, just point out a feature or a couple of steps, it's really, really easy. And the fact that that's built into that program, which is literally free, is really awesome. So again, if that is something you're interested in checking out, you can head over to getgreenshot.org. That's their website. It is covered with advertising, because I guess, you know, that's the joy of free software, is that they've got to make a return somehow. But that's certainly another option. So again, I know not everybody does screen capture or tutorial videos, but again, even if you wanted to just demonstrate something very quickly for a coworker, for a friend, you know, maybe they're not seeing the setting, maybe they want some indication of where they should actually go to see these things. It can be really, really useful to get in there and actually you know, just think about what you're sharing, where you want people's attention to be, and just also making sure that you don't inadvertently share something you don't want to share. So that essentially is really what I wanted to share with you today. So I guess, first of all, thank you for showing up. There's been some great stuff happening in the chat, and I do appreciate you. I am curious, though, if there are things you'd like me to cover in the future, because I don't know. It's one of those things I tell people that you do need to repeat yourself. You do need to emphasize your best talking points often. But I'm kind of reaching a point where I feel like I've said everything 10,000 times. So if there is something that you're particularly interested in, and I guess the thread from the comments is, maybe I need to go and have a look at DroidCam. Maybe I need to learn more about iOS devices, because that's a little bit outside of the scope of my knowledge. And I am actually looking to buy a laptop, and a part of me was like, should I get a Mac? Should I? It feels like the dark side. I don't know if I'm quite ready for that. But yeah, let me know if there are things that you want me to cover, or things that you're interested in as well. I do want to do some more OBS content even outside of this show. So if you haven't already, head over to the Learn Live Streaming channel over on YouTube. I don't know if I've got a banner for that one. Let me just have a quick look. I probably don't. That's all right. And you can, there we go. I do. So you can head over there. I think I'm currently sitting on 407 subscribers, which is awesome, because for the longest time, there was no growth at all. And lately it's been growing really, really beautifully. So thank you for your company today. Let me know in the chat if there are things that you would like to have a look at. Okay, awesome. Thank you. I have actually done some content on that in the past, but it might be a good time to revisit that. So thank you, Walter. We might talk about thumbnails. Again, I guess that's the other thing too. Sam discovered earlier in the week that the A/B variation of thumbnail feature is apparently slowly rolling out to most people on YouTube. And the thing that Saeed and I both kind of agree on is that YouTube thumbnails are hard and annoying to make at the best of times. It's hard enough to make one, let alone to make a second one or a third one. So I'm kind of a bit reluctant to explore that, but maybe it is worth looking at again. I'm happy to show you. And again, the slightly counterintuitive thing I do is that I actually use Microsoft PowerPoint as a graphics tool. So maybe we can have a look at that again. But anyway, I won't keep you too much longer. So have a great week, great weekend, and I'll talk to you again soon. So take care, everybody. And hopefully we'll see Sam back with us when he's got internet up and running again.